Hey, so I just wanted to add this quick preface to the video. For some reason, there's been trends lately of people taking things in YouTube videos as gospel, including opinions. I think this should go without saying, but my thoughts are just my own, and please don't take them too seriously.
In the past, Crab King was regarded as the most irritating and unnecessarily painful boss in Don't Starve Together, at least by me. With abilities like infinitely stun-locking the player, healing ludicrous amounts of HP with little way to counter it if you're in a bad position, and instantly sinking the player's boat, old Crab King was truly a slog to defeat. The real cherry on top was the non-optional nature of the fight. Plenty of games have extremely difficult side bosses that aren't critical for progression, just bragging rights. But Crab King is not like this at all. This is because it drops one of the altars used to summon Celestial Champion, a required boss for advancing through the game. It was genuinely at a point where, from what I could observe, most players who fought him repeatedly used one of a variety of cheese methods to effectively skip the fight. That's how much it sucked. So, what changes have been made to transform this beloathed crustacean lord from a skippable snooze fest to something worthwhile? Well, let's dive right in and find out. Also, I'm gonna talk about the other stuff in this update. Oh, don't worry. Crab King is one of the video game bosses of all time. I think it's a pretty fair statement that being instantly killed, stun-locked forever, or having the boss heal back to full sucks. People give Malenia a bad rap for being overtuned, but even she can only do one of those three things. Crab King can do all three, or could before this update. Instead of being a boat-only fight, the new fight involves an ice platform that appears periodically, crab minions that fire mollusk artillery at you from far away, and self-healing. Okay, I was under the impression that they were reworking this fight to make it more fun. That's okay. Maybe he can self-heal, but at least he can still instant sync the player, ending the fight in a microsecond. Right. This fight sometimes feels more like an endless set of chores than a fight. If you want a real legitimate chance at beating it, you're strongly incentivized to kill all of the crab towers surrounding the boss. If you don't, you're constantly peppered with their projectiles that spring leaks in your boat. Because of course they do. This means that your boat will be constantly, and I mean literally constantly, full of holes, to the point where repairing them with patches is barely fast enough. This is so boring. You have to sit there repairing and slowly breaking the towers one by one, just so you can approach the boss. It just feels like a pointless extra step added to pad out the fight and make it feel more threatening. Not to mention that the crab towers will respawn after enough time has passed, meaning you'll have to do it all over again. After that, you can finally attack the crab, deal some damage, and start the second phase, in which the Crab King will gain a number of other attacks. It begins this part of the fight by launching your boat away at high speeds, and in the time it takes for you to row back to him, he will have healed back all the damage you dealt in the first phase.
It's so much fun.
Now that you've done that, the ice platforms will be swarmed with more adds. You're both incentivized and disincentivized to attack them, as they take quite a long time to kill. Let's not forget the boss can very easily heal itself back to full at any moment, so you can't afford to get distracted. But at the same time, the collective damage that they deal can kill you shockingly quickly. This is a really frustrating part of the boss. What's the point in making the player slog through more waves of adds when the boss has a potent self-heal that can erase all your progress in an instant? It's such a confusing thing to add, and makes this boss fight super exhausting. All in all, this game's combat systems are not very good. You have no way to close distances quickly, no way to survive group ganks, no way to do anything except either run back and forth, or hope you have enough armor and healing to face tank everything thrown your way. This new Crab King brings out the worst in the combat system, with phases that overstay their welcome and are truly a slog to get through. It's a shame because Clay has kind of been onto something with the recent fights, particularly Cave Walker. For this reason, I'm starting to think that Crab King is a fundamentally flawed boss. The boats are just too slow to facilitate a fun fight, and it's difficult to design attacks for the boat environment that aren't adds, or something like the waves or crab mortars that impede your boat's movement and spring a needlessly high amount of leaks. I can't give Clay too much leeway because they did make the active decision to keep the ridiculous self-healing, which is just... Look, I know they don't playtest their game, but come on. Not that this iteration of Crab King is completely devoid of good ideas. I like the temporary ice platform, and the crab minions look great and are conceptually quite fun. It's just that the execution is not very fun for the above reasons. In my last video on Crab King, I praised the build-a-boss mechanic, where you slot in different gems to empower certain aspects of the boss. But now, I don't care for it. It's not a mechanic that rewards experimentation due to the immense cost of attempting a Crab King fight, but rather requires reading the wiki, which I don't particularly want to do. In practice, it's also a bit of a balancing pitfall, since people are probably just going to discover the best combination of gems that pairs with whatever cheese strategy. The only way to know if your current gem combination is any good is, again, reading the wiki, which I must emphasize sucks. God forbid I want to actually play the game and not sit around reading with Google Chrome hoovering up all my RAM. In conclusion, self-healing sucks, this boss needs in-house playtesting, and I'm gonna go and finish the Elden Ring DLC. Bye. Winona, the queen of automation and closeted laziness. With this update, she's latest on the chopping block for the character skill trees, and from what I could tell, Winona's was definitely one of the most hotly anticipated trees. It's no secret that Winona is often viewed as a swap character, that is, a character who joins a world, does something that benefits all characters in the world and not just themselves, and then is promptly canned in favour of a character whose abilities are more broadly suited to day-to-day life inside the world of Don't Starve. This update seemingly aims to steer Winona away from this direction. Her special structures are now less compatible with other characters. Winona is required to arm her catapults, otherwise they'll switch themselves off. One of her new skills enables her to turn on multiple at once, so it isn't too much of a chore. Other characters can still arm them, but it takes longer and they can't use the remote to automate the process. These changes do mean that Winona has to sort of babysit her creations and can't really automatically run them as brainless auto farms, but I think this might have also been Clay's intention, to make her less of an automation-centric character and one you have to actually, play. But not that it's all strictly negatives. Winona has plenty of new abilities to transform her gameplay experience. A huge one is a skill that lets you pack up and rebuild any structures. Needless to say, being able to carry around a boss melting setup in your pocket is kinda crazy. The handy remote is a new craftable that permits Winona to activate and control multiple catapults at once. Precise targeting and barrage are both skills using the remote, making all nearby catapults fire at a specific point and boosting their fire rate respectively. Enlightened Strike and Shadow Strike causes catapults to fire a specially charged lunar or shadow attack, but only if the catapult's powered by Pure Brilliance/Horror, the tier 2 crafting ingredients for each faction. This is another new ability granted by the skill tree. Winona can also choose to side with either Charlie or Wagstaff directly, as unlike most other characters, she knows these two personally. Siding with Wagstaff will permit her to craft the Inspectacles and locate cache boxes that contain blueprints for a couple of interesting things. Solve a simple puzzle and you can get access to the Calibrated Perceiver. This item can be used to scan anything in the game and get the blueprint for it. Most interestingly, you can scan Woebot to craft mini versions of it, or the Wagstaff transmissions dropped by advanced cache boxes to get access to Wagstaff's beloved Telebrella that he had as an ability in single-player Don't Starve. Siding with Charlie gives you access to the rose-coloured glasses. This is a very peculiar item that can be used by Winona to teleport between any two wormholes on the map. Charlie, can also use it to create a spiky bridge over chasms, but unfortunately not in the caves. Furthermore, examining flowers will reward Winona with an item that permits a totally free revive, and examining shadow-associated things will grant Winona a Nightmare Fuel or Pure Horror every now and then. Finally, Winona will be completely immune to Charlie's attacks at night. Unfortunately, most of Winona's skills in her tree are focused on her catapults, not any of her other structures. There are two new buildings, but one is a simplified version of another structure any other character can get. The only thing missing from Winona's skill tree is a name change. Mrs. Catapult would be a much more fitting name for this character, seeing as that's all her abilities revolve around. That or her relationships with two characters who are both infinitely more interesting than she is. To be entirely fair, this is just a skill tree update, not a rework, but seeing as the other character blessed with a skill tree this update did get new structures, it is a bit of a shame that the character whose entire thing is meant to be special buildings only got 1.5. Speaking of, Wurt is a slow burn character. It takes time to build up a considerable army of minions, but once you get there, you can comfortably erase any land-dwelling boss from existence if it displeases you. Wurt's skill tree mostly has stuff to increase quality of life and reduce maintenance, but also some new abilities for your fishy friends, such as tools, permitting Wurt to run a slave colony work site with her mates, all without paying them a single cent. Winona would be proud. But before we discuss any of the minion stuff, Wurt also received a few skills to do with the wetness meter. Most interestingly, letting her use wetness as an extra health meter that's even affected by armor. This permits Wurt to do things like intentionally fail at rowing, or swan dive into the ocean to get some free health. The mosquito crafting tree is mostly overshadowed by her other skills, but are a decent use for mosquito sacks if you have some extra skill points. The Merm King quest skills are cryptic mini-quests that reward all Merms with permanent buffs, upon giving the king certain items. These will increase Merms' defense if they have armor, increase their damage, and give them a dodge ability. This is quite a fun idea actually, it's just that with certain skills, Wurt can now craft the communal kelp dish, keeping multiple Merms fed, and the tool shed and armory to equip them with tools, permitting work and armor. This is quite an elegant solution to having to beef up multiple minions at once, only requiring Wurt to keep the structures stocked with resources instead of having to micromanage each Merm. And that's, what, like 7 characters now who overshadow Woody at chopping wood? I don't know, I've honestly lost count at this point. Finally, Wurt's lunar and shadow alignments permit mutating merms into Deep 1-esque monstrosities or shadowy spooks, respectively. This is achieved by feeding merms rare lunar or shadow resources. This converts all their damage to planar damage, as well as a unique ability for each. Lunar merms will deal an AoE similar to the Bramble Husk when they take damage. Shadow merms will transform into their spooky version when they die, effectively doubling their health. That second one confused me a bit at first, but you know. Honestly, Wurt's skill tree is kinda banging. Many of her skills revolutionize the way you use merm followers, and gives them a ton new abilities. I honestly feel a bit of a craving to start a new Wurt world, with all the new stuff to play around with. Just a bit unfortunate there's no skill that changes her personality to be more interesting than that of a wet sock. Finally, there's some smaller but still interesting additions. Firstly is a number of ocean set pieces, containing valuable seafaring gear, but watch out for any nasty traps. Marautas are a new oceanic mob who live in a floating nest. They steal building materials and food, making them a surprisingly good source of useful things. More mobs to fill the world is always what this game needs, and it's honestly nice that we get more than one every single year. Minecraft. Surprising seeds are a new thing you can find in sunken chests. After experimenting with the right turf or season to grow them, they'll blossom into either a gloomthorn or a sprout rock. Once fully grown, gloomthorns will yield 4 night berries occasionally, a peculiar fruit that grants night vision. Sprout rocks instead grow geode fruit, which, when heated, will produce random gems. I love the idea of rare finds that actually mean something, i.e. only being able to be found this way. Most skeleton boons you can find are helpful, sure, but there are always things you can craft later down the line anyway. Finding an exotic seed for a mysterious plant is exciting and feels a lot rarer than even the most treasured skeleton loot. Archaic boats are another rare find that can be uncovered from sunken chests in kit form. When placed, they function the same as normal boats, except with double the hit points and a built-in chest storage. I love this. Rare boat that has double the health? Count me in. The chest is also a nice addition. Even though boats technically already have infinite storage, I usually end up building a chest on them just for organization's sake. Lastly, sea stacks near the Monkey Island will have yellow banana paint on them. This is a massive exploratory change that makes locating the island much less frustrating. More changes to the experience of finding essential things like this are very much welcome. All in all, this update is pretty good. I'm not a fan of the Crab King fight, but look, I'm sure people will find ways to deal with it cheese-wise, and then we can all just forget it exists again. Probably the biggest kicker with CK is that you have to invest all these materials into boats and boat patches. If you die, that's a ludicrous amount of wood down the drain, which is honestly almost, if not straight up worse, than dying. What's dying gonna cost you? A life-giving amulet? Literally nothing if you're Winona? I don't know, whatever man. And speaking of skill trees, my mod character has one in the works, and it's getting there. It'll be out on the workshop at some point. Soon, for sure. So keep an eye out for that. Anyway, thanks for watching this video, I appreciate it. Like, subscribe, bye.